From iPhones to Xbox Live, the 2000s were a time for innovation. Gadgets and technology reflected the excitement for the future, as companies raced to provide accessible and intriguing products. However, not everyone would share in the success. Ranging from Nokia's disastrous attempt to grab a piece of the gaming pie, to Sony's disturbing household companion, many that pushed the boundaries were met with massive commercial failure, even in a decade that valued such creativity. Today, we'll be digging into some of the devices and technology that massively failed at the time, or died and remained in the 2000s. I'll be interested to know how many of you ever used or owned any of these products. Also known as the Taco phone due to its appearance, the Nokia N-Gage was a handheld gaming console and mobile phone. Released in 2003, it was intended as a direct competitor to the wildly successful Game Boy Advance. Despite its size, the N-Gage boasted a fairly hefty arsenal of titles, with Tomb Raider, Sonic N and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater being among those available at launch. However, as noted by the original IGN article, this was still around half what was originally promised, a disappointment that would be echoed in almost every other one of its features. Being priced at around $300, the first few weeks of its release were devastating. The N-Gage was being outsold by the Game Boy 100 to 1, and EB Games and GameStop would almost immediately offer rebates of up to $100 for the device. The N-Gage was practically dead on arrival. So, what was so wrong with it? Well, much like a taco, you'd have to partly disassemble it to really get things going. Loading a new game required the removal of the back half of the device and even the battery, a process you'd have to repeat every time you swapped from Rayman 3 to Super Monkey Ball. Additionally, while the idea of combining mobile phone functionality with gaming was intriguing, its implementation was confusing and unconventional, partly because gamers didn't have anyone to talk to, but mostly because of the tiny numbered buttons that doubled as controls. In a world of joysticks and very simplified control schemes, it made little sense to control Sonic with a hash key and actively know the difference between dialing 911 and doing a heel flip. While it did feature some interesting and unique titles like Glimmerati, the N-Gage was ultimately not engaging. Still, it at least made it to the shelves, unlike the next product in this video. Following the release of their Aibo robot dog line in the early 2000s, Qrio, meaning Quest for Curiosity, would be developed and marketed by Sony. The robot would have the ability to talk, dance, run, and even respond to human gestures and faces. You might recognise Qrio from a few of the promotional videos at the time, or even its appearance in the music video for Hell Yes by Beck. A lot of these showed off its fluid movements through programmed dance routines, some of which taking up to 3 weeks to choreograph and implement. In short, Qrio promised massive leaps in commercially available robotic technology. It was even credited in the 2005 Guinness Book of World Records as the world's first bipedal robot with the ability to run, albeit extremely slowly. However, while generally received well, not everyone was keen on the idea of Sony's new robot. It came across as pretty creepy in quite a few of the promotional shots, especially the ones that had it staring blankly at the camera. I think this footage of it singing pretty much sums it up. Yeah. Regardless, most people were quite excited for its use as an entertaining household companion, even if its practicality remained fairly ambiguous. Unfortunately, it and the original Aibo line would be cancelled in January of 2006, following a massive restructuring of the company that focused on more profitable ventures. Struggling to find a logical place in the market, Qrio would ultimately never make it out of development. The number of prototypes that were ever made and still exist today is unknown. Unlike Qrio, you can actually still buy and use the Sega Dreamcast right now. However, back in 2001, the Dreamcast marked the end of Sega's involvement in the console market, following the catastrophic release of the Sega Saturn in 1995, which had already damaged the company's reputation with its high price point and value when compared to competitors. The Dreamcast was the nail in the coffin for a company with 18 years of console development under its belt. This isn't to say the Dreamcast was a terrible console. Its innovative use of online play features and several games like Sonic Adventure received critical acclaim, remaining popular with fans to this day. Overall, a multitude of factors can be held responsible for its failure and cancellation. Much of this can be attributed to its steep competition, the largest proportion of which coming from Sony's PlayStation 2. The PS2 was significantly more powerful and also more convenient, with its use of DVD and superior hardware making it the more desirable option for consumers. This, coupled with the poor reception of the Saturn and financially damaging price reductions that failed to solidify its place in the market, was enough for Sega to discontinue the console and re-emerge as a third-party developer. As a result, we are yet to see another console from Sega, and probably never will. Another series of devices that were almost entirely left in the 2000s were PDAs, or Personal Digital Assistants. Selling over 12 million units in the year 2000, products like the Palm Pilot were used to manage calendars and track your expenses. By the turn of the millennium, most had the ability to access the internet, making them extremely handy for something you could fit in your pocket. As I'm sure you've already guessed, the reason for their mainstream disappearance is pretty straightforward.
Thanks.
It's got everything you need, all wrapped up in one.
Mobile devices were eventually able to capture and excel in all of the features that made PDAs desirable, leaving them without a solid foothold in the market. Now, yes, while the Kinect was released at the tail end of the 2000s and ended production as late as 2017, its design, release and cancellation provide a perfect example of the race for futuristic technology exceeding practical use. Honestly, the idea was intriguing enough. At a time when the Wii still dominated, alongside games like Wii Sports Resort, a similar style of interactive gameplay but on an Xbox console was interesting. I remember being incredibly excited for its release, only to be defeated by the cardiovascular commitment needed for Kinect adventures. Of course, there were some games that were quite enjoyable, like Kinect Star Wars. While extremely awkward to play, the concept was cool enough to keep some locked in initially. Unfortunately, a few good experiences were not enough to save the $150 console DLC. The lack of truly standout titles meant it would remain a second choice for those with access to any of the Halo titles, or, to be honest, any game that didn't require flailing your arms around and praying it would accurately pick up your movements. This meant that once the novelty wore off, the Kinect would be reduced to a glorified voice activation system. So, despite making a significant amount of initial sales, people would soon begin opting for the cheaper consoles that shipped without the Kinect, as its value no longer matched the additional price. This, and its inability to truly replicate the success of the Wii, would contribute to its discontinuation in 2017. Notably, the Kinect did see some applications outside of gaming that continue to this day. Cheap motion capture is one example, and there even exists an entire community called Open Kinect that focuses on the hardware's compatibility with Mac and Windows. Overall, it's interesting to see how unafraid many companies were to incorporate and develop more adventurous technologies and design. While we still see a lot of this today, especially in the field of augmented reality, devices like Xbox and PlayStation are more reluctant to stray from the tried and true formula they established decades ago. Even iPhones are still shipped with the same basic features as 2007. If anything, the current focus on optimization is actually taking features away. Consoles no longer support disk drives by default, and many phones don't even have holes for traditional audio cables. The idea of innovation is seemingly more occupied with streamlining existing products that have a solidified place in the market, meaning there is less incentive to develop radical devices like Qrio or the N-Gage. While this provides a lot of financial security, and is obviously the more logical option, I wonder how many wacky or innovative designs we've missed out on as a result. Whatever the case, thanks so much for watching the video. The support recently has been amazing. Feel free to drop a like if you enjoyed, or a dislike if otherwise. And consider subscribing for more content just like this. This has been Extrament, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Wouldn't you rather be here, right? Because when you're at a gym, you're thinking, oh, I'm depressed, I'm a loser, I don't necessarily know what to do with myself. And so you're starting to think, that $300 I just spent on a gym membership, why didn't I spend it on $300 worth of chicken nuggets?